Many of you may be familiar with the saying, the day the music died. People magazine states February 3rd, 1959 has become one of the most mythic days in rock and roll history. It is the day that the 1947 Beechcraft Bonanza 35 carrying Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and J.B., the Big Bopper Richardson, crashed in an Iowa cornfield. To many, it is simply the day the music died. This happened 20 years before I was born, and I am also very familiar with this. This monumental day struck down the hearts of many people. Those three music artists captured to attract attentions of millions of people and left the earth so quickly. There are a few did you know items that I found interesting while researching this day. Reasons to why or how these musicians found themselves on this plane. Or what the meaning behind the famous song by Don McLean, American Pie, actually means. First of all, three artists, Ritchie Valens, Buddy Holly, and the Big Bopper, were not all supposed to be on the flight that day. Actually, the only reason why the plane ever came into play was due to a rough bus ride, which and then Holly decided to charter a plane. The Big Bopper received his seat by the action of the singer Waylon Jennings. Waylon Jennings was a backup singer to Buddy Holly. Well, he surrendered his seat to him by electing to take a bus. Now, according to Waylon Jennings' autobiography, when Holly learned that Jennings was going to take the bus, Holly said, and I quote, "Well, I hope your bus freezes up." Jennings responded, "Well, I hope your old plane crashes." This ill-fated quip, he said, has haunted him for the rest of his life. Luck, bad or the otherwise, surrounded the flight from the beginning. In the book Falling Stars, Air Crashes that Filled in Rock and Roll Heaven, Rich Everett says that Valens won a spot on the plane from the guitarist Tommy Alsop in a coin toss. Alsop later started a club called Tommy's Heads Up Saloon in Fort Worth, Texas, named after the fateful event. With every action, there is a reaction, and it wasn't long before the song was written about this event. The first song to memorialize the event was actually Eddie Cochran's The Three Stars. But of course, Don McLean's American Pie is the song most closely linked to this incident. After all, it is where we got the phrase, the day the music died. While most of the song talks about McLean's life through the 60s, his first verse is solely dedicated to the crash of Buddy Holly. Here's what is meant behind this first verse. It starts out, "A long, long time ago, I can still remember how that music used to make me smile. And I knew if I had my chance, that I could make those people dance, and maybe they'd be happy for a while." In this section, Don McLean's talking about, and he says, a long, long time ago. Well, he wrote this song in the 70s. So this incident took place in the 50s. So there's a 20-year span, and in the 60s there was a lot of turmoil, so it kind of draw out that time period. And he says that he can still remember how the music used to make him smile. He was a huge fan of the 50s. You had Elvis Presley, Little Richard, those types of artists, and he was a big fan of it, and it always made him happy. And then he said, back then the big thing going out was to dance and have fun, and everybody was, that was the fun thing to do. And if you saw two people slow dancing together, it means that they were in a committed relationship and they really cared about each other. McLean further goes on in the song and says, "But February made me shiver with every paper I'd deliver. Bad news on the doorstep, I couldn't take one more step." In this section, Don McLean, when he was also a professional music writer, on his side job, he was a paper boy. And he remembers that February day, which was the plane crash, when he was delivering the paper and got to the doorstep and he read the article, and he was just frozen in his tracks. He then says, "I can't remember if I cried when I read about this widowed bride." The widowed bride he's talking about is Buddy Holly's wife. Buddy Holly's wife, when she found out that this had happened, she was pregnant, and she had a miscarriage the very next day. Finally, he says, "But something touched me deep inside the day the music died." Now, we can't say exactly what touched him deep inside, but we can, guess that on that when that happened, that could have been the straw that broke the camel's back. Because in the same time period, Elvis Presley enlisted in the draft, and Little Richard went to gospel music, and then you also have Chuck Berry, who got arrested for sleeping with a prostitute. So it was kind of like the end of the rock and roll right then. The familiar saying of the day the music died will always remind people of this fatal crash. And if not, I'm sure that the song may come to mind. Either way, it will bring people back to the memory of this day. Thank you.